In a time long, long ago, in a village surrounded by mountains and rivers, people shared stories about their God. They told of love, kindness, and how to live good lives. But some special words were lost over time. Today, let's go on an exciting journey to discover 10 special verses that were once in the Bible but were removed. But before we delve in, I want to beg you for a favor. Please do well to share video with everyone on WhatsApp, Facebook, families, church group and other social media platforms because we want to know your thought about this teaching. Be free to make comment and God bless you as you do. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. The Gospel of Thomas. Once upon a time, there was a book called the Gospel of Thomas. It had lots of wise sayings from Jesus. One saying told us that knowing ourselves is super important. It said, when you know who you really are, you will find God. Isn't that amazing? 2. The Book of Enoch. Next, we have the Book of Enoch. This story talks about angels and how they visit Earth. It reminds us to always behave well and treat others kindly because we never know who is watching. The Bible said there's a special angel that watches over you. How cool is that? 3. The Gospel of Mary. Now, let's meet Mary, a very special woman. In the Gospel of Mary, she teaches us that everyone can talk to God and that love is the most powerful thing we can have. One of her sayings was, love is the truth that sets us free. Isn't love wonderful? 4. The Prayer of Manasseh. Okay, so our next verse comes from the Prayer of Manasseh, a prayer that talked about asking for God's forgiveness. It teaches us that anytime we make a mistake, we can always say we're sorry and ask God to help us be better. Like when you tell your mom you're sorry for breaking a toy. Verse 5, the Shepherd of Hermas. The Shepherd of Hermas is a tale about a shepherd who teaches us how to be good and live honest lives. It reminds us to trust in God because He always guides us, like how a shepherd takes care of his sheep. When you're lost, just remember, God is always with you. 6. The Letter of Barnabas. Now, we find a letter from someone named Barnabas. He wrote about how important it is to love one another, no matter our differences. He said, people should be kind and help one another, for kindness is like a warm hug. And hugs make everything better, don't they? 7. The Acts of Paul and Thecla. This is such a cool story about Paul and a brave girl named Thecla. She was strong and believed in God, even when things were tough. It teaches us that we should be brave and stand up for what we believe in, like being a superhero for good. 8. The Apocalypse of Peter. The next verse you're going to love. It's from the Apocalypse of Peter. It shows how special and beautiful the world is when we live a good life. It reminds us not to be afraid. God has a wonderful place for us after we are gone, full of bright stars and happy moments. 9. The Gospel of Judas. Now, let's talk about the Gospel of Judas. It's about choices we all have to make. Judas wasn't just a bad guy, he was confused. This verse helps us understand that everyone makes mistakes but learning from them is the most important part. Every day is a chance to do better. 10. The Book of Giants. Last but not least, we have a tale called the Book of Giants. This story talks about giants and lessons about good and evil. It teaches us that, no matter how big or small we are, we can always choose to do the right thing. Kindness is what makes us mighty. The reasons for the removal of certain verses and texts from the Bible can vary significantly based on historical context, theological debates, and decisions made by religious authorities. Here are some common reasons why the 10 verses or texts mentioned earlier, often referred to as apocryphal or deuterocanonical writings, were excluded from the canonical Bible. 1. Lack of apostolic authority. Many of the removed texts were not written by apostles or their close associates, leading church leaders to question their authenticity and authority compared to texts that were believed to have a direct connection to Jesus or his disciples. 2. Theological discrepancies. Some texts contained ideas or teachings that contradicted established Christian doctrines. Religious leaders might have deemed certain writings too radical, heretical, or in conflict with core beliefs about God, salvation, and the nature of Jesus. 3. Inconsistent historical accounts. Some of these verses contained accounts or narratives that were seen as historically questionable or inconsistent with the accepted scripture. Early church leaders sought to maintain a coherent narrative within the canon. 4. Variations in early Christian communities. Different Christian communities had varying beliefs and practices. Some writings were popular in certain groups but were not universally accepted, leading to their exclusion when compiling the canon to ensure a unified doctrine. 5. Preservation and transmission. Texts that were not widely copied or circulated may have been lost or forgotten over time. As the early church focused on specific texts for liturgical and educational purposes, lesser-known writings may have been omitted simply due to lack of use. 6. Political and social factors. The decisions on which texts to include in the Bible were sometimes influenced by political and social factors. Religious authorities may have aimed to suppress writings that were associated with rival sects or movements that posed a threat to their control. 7. Council decisions. Key church councils, such as the councils of Hippo and Carthage in the late 4th century, played a significant role in determining the canon of the Bible. During these councils, debates over various texts led to their acceptance or rejection based on theological and practical considerations. 8. Focus on core messages. The early church often aimed to distill the Christian message down to its essentials, focusing on texts that clearly conveyed the teachings of Jesus and the central tenets of Christianity. This led to the exclusion of writings considered supplementary or less straightforward. 9. Linguistic and cultural differences. Some texts were written in languages or cultural contexts that were less understood by the broader early Christian community, making them less accessible and hence less likely to be included in the canon. 10. Later reevaluation. Over time, the perception of certain texts changed. Some writings were rediscovered and reevaluated, leading to ongoing debates about their significance and validity. However, many remained excluded due to established traditions and conventions. While these reasons have historical and theological roots, it's essential to recognize that the discussions about canonization and exclusion remain complex and are influenced by diverse opinions within Christianity. So, there you have it. 10 special verses that were once in the Bible. They remind us to love, be kind, and never give up. Even if these stories are lost, their messages are still with us. Always remember, you can talk to God, be brave, and, most importantly, love each other. Let's share these beautiful lessons with everyone. And who knows? One day, we might find more stories to learn. Until then, keep being good and loving. Goodbye.